Hello friends, welcome back to the next session on operations planning, scheduling and control. Now let's begin with our learning. In this particular session, we'll be able to understand and deal with the concept of job shop, the learning objectives. At the end of this particular session, the learners will be able to understand what do we mean by the job shop, what are the various activities that are being conducted in the job shop, and what do we understand with the term job shop and what is the role of job shop in the organization. And lastly, what are the various advantages and disadvantages, that is limitations of a job shop. Now let's first understand what do we mean by the job shop. In a simpler terms, job shop are the tiny manufacturing systems that manage the job production or customers' bespoke or semi-bespoke manufacturing processes like small to medium-sized customers' orders or batch works. So, in simpler terms, whatever small or tiny activities that have been conducted in a business organization or a manufacturing organization, such type of activities may be of a prime importance, maybe of a greater importance, or maybe of a least importance nature. Such type of activities, when they have been conducted from the smaller level to the larger level, and accordingly those type of activities are called as a job shop. So when a work is been finished, job shop often go on to the other job, that is perhaps to the different customers. So in this case we have to understand it is just a series of small amount of activities that is being undertaken in the business organization, and hence job shop is a series of activities or a small portion of activity which can be completed or which can be undertaken for a very smaller period. Now, here is this in this particular slide, the learners can see what is the procedure or how the activities are being performed at the level of job shop. The job shop is always divided or is usually divided into three types: the flow shop, the job shop, and the project shop. So in this particular, in the first diagram on the left hand side, in the flow shop, we can see that the job or a particular task is been moving from one level to another level, one department to another department, one machine to another machine, and it is always in a sequential way. So that is the concept of flow shop, wherein on a particular assembly line, the product is moving from one level to another level. The second diagram or the second picture focuses on the concept of job shop. So in terms of the job shop, there are several composition of those machines which have been coordinated together, and accordingly you can see that the red color line or the red line which shows the movement of goods or a particular activity from one level to another level. Initially, it is in a horizontal level, that is 1, 2 and 3. Then again it moves to the next level, that is at the bottom level, and again it moves to the left hand side to the bottom side and again exit from the next machine. So in this way what happened? The product is moving in a not organized way or not in a uniform way. But in case of a flow shop, the way or direction is uniform and it is always in a sequence. So in this particular case, in terms of a job shop, the activity may be either in a sequence or it may be either in any way as per the importance of the task that needs to be undertaken. And the third example, in terms of the third diagram, you can see that a particular machine has been there, it has been associated, and several activities come together and they form the part or the composition of the machine that has been undertaken. So this is the procedure or the activities that have been undertaken in terms of the job shop. Always the flow shop, the job shop and the project shop are always different from each other, and accordingly those activities differ from each and every sequence. Now let's understand the conceptual clarity with respect to what do we mean by the job shop. So due to the nature of skills and technical processes involved in the job shop, there are at times it has been observed that a certain activity may be completed in the specified time period or certain activity may not be completed. With respect to the importance, we have to identify which activity is more important and which activity is least important. Based on the importance of activity, the time factor also changes. That is, a certain amount of activity may be completed in the very short period, or a certain amount of activity may require the longer time period. So, based on the time that has been involved, based on the importance or priority of that particular work that has to be undertaken, the activity is been aggregated or it has been divided at different levels. That is, passing on from different assembly lines or a composition, or either in a zigzag way, horizontal and vertical way, or a combination of mixed match approach, and accordingly the variety of machines or combination is being undertaken. And when such type of processing is being undertaken at different levels, the job shop restricts the organization to conduct a certain activity. So how do we plan a sequence or series of activities? Based on those considerations, the job shop activity needs to be designed. So the problem of job shop scheduling is considered as no problem hard in the computer science. So accordingly, whether the problem may be related to the work, may be related to the machine, or may be related to a certain process, job shop gives you a clear understanding or a picture about how those activities will be undertaken, how they will be complied, and the product or resultant output will be done in a very effective or a simpler way. Now let's take the various examples of job shop. A machine job shop, for example, may produce parts of local industrial machines, farm machinery and implements, boats and ships, or even quantities of specialized components for the aviation sector. So, in terms of a machine shop wherein a particular machinery needs to be prepared, so that particular machinery may be related to any sector or any specific industry. When you say you prepare a farm machinery or a particular tool or a particular boat or a particular ship or a particular component of an aviation industry, then accordingly small components gets assembled together, and the components, when they are assembled together, that particular activity is called as a part of a job shop. The task that has been related to the grinding, honing, jig boring, gear manufacture and fabrication shops are the examples of the common task shop, wherein the certain type of activity is common for all these particular consideration, and accordingly there is a proper sequence or series of activity. That is, initially the activities have been conducted in a sequence, that is on the flow shop, that is in the part of an assembly line, but later on, as per the mode or changes in the assembly line, the job shop activity differs. So the common task for a certain point of time is applicable, whereas after a certain stage, the task differs from person to person, individual to individual, machine to machine, and so on. The next composition is the continuous job shop that can be undertaken for a particular machine. The continuous job shop focuses on the concept of what type of material that is needed to be employed, how those activities needs to be completed, and what is the amount of labor that is to be used. So the amount of labor may be either involvement of the skilled or the unskilled labor, the involvement of the manual labor, and lastly, the involvement of the machine as a part of a labor, that is the robotics perspective. And hence the polar opposites may be a certain situation, that is either there may be involvement of labor or either there may not be the involvement of labor. And hence the examples of job shops are different with respect to a certain machine shop, a common task shop, or a continuous flow shop. Now let's understand what are the various advantages of the job shop. The number one, that is the first advantage of a job shop, is it creates a high product engineering flexibility. So accordingly, more flexibility is created in the organization, and accordingly we can see that the product is moving from one place to another place, one level to another level, one machine to another machine, and accordingly there is high productivity or high production engineering that can be created. In terms of flexibility, the product is freely moving from one machine to another machine, and accordingly it is a well series coordinated of those activities. High expansion flexibility. There is always a flexibility with respect to the machines that have been employed or that have been specified in the organization. The machines are easily added or substituted. So whenever you feel that the number of machines that has been implemented in the job shop needs to be either increased or needs to be decreased, then at that particular case, the flexibility in those particular concerns can be provided. And hence, the job shop is of a certain consideration which tries to prove or identifies about how the machinery can be implemented and how those activities can be organized in an organization. High flexibility in terms of manufacturing volume. So in terms of the manufacturing volume, the job shop can be implemented in a very effective way, and the flexibility in the job shop can be identified at a greater concern. So in this case, the manufacturing volume, when the business needs to be increased, the volume or the quantity of goods and services that are to be manufactured needs to be increased. At that particular stage, the flexibility in the business organization can be increased, and accordingly, those particular activities can be undertaken in a better way. The next advantage of the job shop is low rate of obsolescence. Now, when the job shop is a concern wherein the tiny or small manufacturing activities with respect to the upkeep, maintenance, repairs, and so on are being undertaken. For those particular consideration, when the activity is very tiny and small, the activity is also completed in the very specified time period. And when the activity gets completed in an early stage, there is less amount of wastage or obsolescence that can be created in terms of machinery that is into existence. So for those particular concern, it is an advantage to the organization that the rate of obsolescence is also a bit lower or less in the organization. The last advantage, that is extremely resistant to machine breakdown. So at certain stages, it has been observed that the job shop activity that has been conducted is always resistant to the machine breakdown. So whenever if there is a certain concern of the machine breakdown into existence, then accordingly the machinery may get at a certain position in a working condition in a very effective way at an early stage, and accordingly there can be less minimized number of breakdowns that can be associated with the amount of machines. Now let's understand what are the various limitations with respect to the job shop. The various limitations as to job shop is scheduling is at most difficult. So here in this case, while scheduling a particular activity, it is very difficult to identify which activity is to be prioritized first and which activity is to be prioritized at the latter stage. And hence, there is a limitation with respect to the job shop that how the activity needs to be completed and how the activity needs to be complied within a specified time period. And hence, for scheduling concern, the job shop is having a certain amount of limitation owing to product unpredictability. So in this case, there is another limitation with respect to the job shop that the product cannot be predicted about how it can be there in a certain existence. That is, what will be the quantity that will be produced, what will be the efficiency, what will be the potency, and what will be the quality of product that can be manufactured at the particular stage. And hence, the product unpredictability with respect to various factors is of a certain limitation, and one cannot come to a certain conclusion about how those products can be occupied or it can be fulfilled. A twisted manufacturing flow always. Now, as we have seen in the procedure or activities that has been undertaken in the job shop, always the job shop activity is of a twisted nature. That is, there is no sequence or series of activities that can be undertaken in a business organization, and hence the activity or the series or flow of activity in terms of the job shop is always of a twisted nature. Insufficient capacity usage. Now, in case of a job shop, always the capacity usage is insufficient. We cannot come to a certain conclusion, or a proper conclusion cannot be drawn as to what capacity can be utilized and how those particular capacity can be completed in an effective way. So, for a better understanding of the completion of activity, or for a small or tiny activity in the specified time period, the job shop needs to be there at a very rapid stage, and accordingly, those activities must be also complied and completed in a very sufficient concern. And hence, for those particular concern, the job shop needs to be very effective and it should provide a feasible or output productivity to the organization. Now let's understand what are the various 5 ways to increase productivity on the job shop floor. Number 1, evaluating and optimizing the workflow. So initially, whatever work that has been undertaken or that is going to be undertaken, that particular work should be evaluated in a very proper sequential way. It should be understood very clearly, and accordingly optimizing those activities needs to be taken into account. Getting it organized. So initially, when we plan or when we decide for a certain activity, when the schedule is been prepared, one has to see that all those activities are being organized in a very effective way, and hence those activities should be organized, and accordingly the plan of action should be implemented. The next step in increasing the productivity on the job shop floor is evaluating the equipment. So whatever equipment on which the tiny manufacturing activity is going to be undertaken, or the process of upkeep maintenance is required for those particular consideration, the evaluation of the equipment as to its availability, its upkeep maintenance, is repairs that has been undertaken, is capacity to produce or manufacture, all those factors needs to be evaluated, and hence there should be a conclusion as to what is the performance of the machinery or the equipment. Reducing the work in progress. So with respect to the work in progress, one has to understand and analyze about what are the activities that can be conducted in a business organization and how those activities will help in a particular business concern to evaluate and conduct the business activities in a very effective way. And hence, reducing the work in progress is essentially important with respect to the job shop floor. And lastly, implementation of an ERP. So whatever the ERP software or the process that the organization is aiming for, that particular implementation activity needs to be done in a very effective way. And hence, with this particular concern, the productivity of the organization or the job shop floor can increase in a better position. Now, let's understand how do we conclude with this particular topic. So, whether there may be any type of layout in the organization. That is, either the layout may be of a line nature, facilities nature, and upkeep maintenance nature. The flow shop, that is a job shop activity, is of a line layout and is a type of facility arrangement. So, the facility as to conduction of the manufacturing activity, which is having a smaller importance, and a combination of smaller activities which result in a bigger activity or a larger processes. So, the process that is being undertaken based on the flow of the work in the organization, that is the flow of job in the organization, in the same processing path, it's called the job shop. Now let's summarize what we have learned in this particular session. In this particular session, we have understood and learned about what do we mean by the job shop, what are the various activities that have been undertaken in terms of the job shop, how planning is essentially important and required in terms of the job shop, and how do we implement the job shop in the job shop level and at the job floor level. I hope you must have enjoyed the learning at this particular stage. Thank you for your patience listening. Thank you.